I found out my daughter is not mine after taking a paternity test. And even my fiancé doesn't know who her father is. She slept with so many. About a month ago, an old friend of my fiancé came and told me my daughter might not be mine 1 year. She told me Sarah fiancé, fake name, confessed to her shortly after finding out she was pregnant that it might not be mine because at the time she had been sleeping with one other guy. Now that we are going to get married soon, she just couldn't keep this to herself and felt the need to tell me. Well, I obviously didn't take the news well, because everything she said contradicted the person I knew for 5 years, who was faithful, honest, and loving. However, that doubt didn't go away, and I ended up going through with a paternity test. I'm not her father, and as you can imagine, that has broken my heart. I'm still coming to terms with the news. It explains why she suddenly got pregnant, despite the protection I was using. But I just assumed things happen, and it is what it is. Abortion was out of the question. At this point, I'm not sure where to go in life. The wedding is 2 weeks away at this point, family is coming, everything is paid for. My daughter, who I love, turns out isn't mine at all, and I've been raising someone else's kid. I'm about to marry a woman who I can't bring myself to look at anymore. I'm at a loss. I'm not sure what advice Reddit can offer, but I don't know who else to turn to. Edit. Thank you for all the advice, good and bad. Different perspectives offer some insight as to what I can do, and even the ones that didn't help pointed out what I shouldn't do. All I know is that I have loved this woman and her family. The last thing I want is a nuclear option. There's a lot to consider. I have 2 weeks at this point to decide what I want to do. I'm heartbroken. I don't want to necessarily think with my emotions alone. Rather, I want to think this through as I make another of my large life choices. I am currently waiting on the results of a second paternity test, just to confirm the results of the first one before I make any kind of jump. If you still have any additional advice to offer it away. I'm still catching up on messages. There are so many, and I'm taking my time to reflect on each one. Update. I'm sure people would like an update and somewhat of a conclusion to this hurdle in my life. But here's what happened. I read everyone's advice, and a lot of it was very helpful, while others not so much, some going as far as to consider murder. Yeah, not on the table. But for those who did offer genuine advice, thank you. After getting the same result with a second paternity test, I talked to Sarah, and a lot of emotions rolled out. How could an old friend betray me? I wasn't sure if it was or wasn't yours. I'm sorry. How could you not trust me? She was all over the place. After she calmed down, I got a few more answers out of her. It turns out it wasn't one guy she was sleeping with, but rather a total of 3, and they wore protection too. But someone got unlucky and knocked her up. At this point, I should have been furious, but somehow, that didn't happen. I had grown numb to the whole situation. So yeah, I decided I didn't want to go through with this marriage and put everything on hold. I planned to eventually cancel everything. I called my parents and explained what was going on. They were shocked, and then her parents had the same reaction. I was surprised at how understanding they were of the whole situation. Like I said, they're great people, and their reaction only reinforced this. Luckily, the wedding was within driving distance of all attendees. 8 hours being the longest drive, the amount of fallout was minimal. Apart from me and her parents, no one else knows what's really going on other than the wedding being delayed. Regarding my daughter, I've come to terms that she's not mine, and any feelings I have towards her were built on a lie. It's not too late to start over. She's still young, 1-year-old, and she won't remember me. As painful as it is, I can't see my life continuing with her. So to wrap things up, I've moved out for the time being to have more space. My parents said I could stay with them until I could sort things out. I'm waiting on the results of an STD test, which should be coming in tomorrow. I've talked to a lawyer, and she said it's a pretty messy situation, but if we can find out who the father is, it could very much help my case. I don't know any of the possible fathers, but her friend instantly knew 2 of the names. As for the third, she wasn't sure but knew someone who might. So this is where I am. I am still not sure where things will go or what will happen, but I can only hope for the best. Life sometimes takes a dump on you, but you don't realize it till one person spills the beans. Thanks, Reddit, for the help. I wish I could tell you I'm looking forward to a happy ending, but it's too soon to be sure of anything. Second story. AITA for breaking up with my girlfriend. Who was SA? My 32MGF24F, and I have been dating for about 2 years now. 4 months ago, she started acting what I would call weird or different. She started ignoring my calls for a couple of days. For context, we don't live together. I eventually went over to her house, and she opened the door and looked like a wreck. Her hair was a mess, and her face was red and puffy, like she had been crying. I ask what's wrong, and she just kind of shuts down. She eventually broke down, crying more, and said a co-worker of hers saw her. He had attacked her during a photo shoot when nobody else was around. And it was really shocking to hear. I immediately asked if she had done a kit, been to the hospital, filed a police report, etc. And she said no, saying that she wouldn't do that. Again, I was shocked to find out this happened the weekend prior, and that she said she couldn't possibly face him again or go through a court process. I did everything possible to convince her otherwise. She eventually snapped at me and told me to leave. I initially refused, but she began screaming at me, so I left. I contemplated telling her parents, but I didn't. I knew she wouldn't have told them either. In hindsight, I probably should have, but I didn't. I gave her the next 24 hours to herself before reaching back out. We talked more and met up, and I talked to her once again about filing, which she denied. I told her she would need therapy to help get over this trauma. A couple of weeks later, she said she had begun speaking to someone about this. Now I don't know who this person is or if she even really is going, but a month after the situation, she seemed better. We were hanging out, laughing, and having a good time again. Here's where it gets a little rough. Our actual life has obviously been non-existent. I get it. I understand why this is. One time I tried making a move, and she legit flinched. Her eyes widened. I knew she wasn't ready. She apologized, I apologized, and that was that. This was almost 3 months ago. We are 4 months past her assault. She's been in therapy supposedly for 3 months, and there is no SX period, not even fooling around. SX is important to me in a relationship. I've tried talking to her about it, and she just says that it's scary for her, and she gets flashbacks. I get that. I 100% do. But how long am I expected to wait with nothing at all? She doesn't speak to me at all about therapy sessions, never talks about what happened outside of that day. And yet she wants to have a normal relationship. I don't see this as a normal relationship anymore. I'm not legally tied to her, so I'm thinking of just ending the relationship. I love her, but I have needs too. I just don't want to seem like a complete arse leaving her. Relevant comments. Amazing Reserve 9089. Some would say not waiting until she initiated or said she might be ready was applying light force. Her apology, instead of saying, "What are you doing? What's wrong with you?" OP replied. Or she was just embarrassed for reacting like she did. If she was that upset, she wouldn't have made me dinner later that night. I understand what you're trying to do, but you aren't in my situation, and I'm not a jerk, so I hope you never are. Spaviters. When it happened to me, it took me 4 months to even admit what it was. It's different for everyone. If you love her, you would stick around. If you don't love her, then do her a favor and leave. It's that simple. In the long run, she's not going to want to be with a guy who doesn't love and support her. Let someone else be that man for her because she deserves someone else, and it really doesn't seem like it's going to be you. OP replied. Well, that's not true at all, TBH, saying, oh, leave if you don't love her. I think that the best option would be for me to end it, because she needs the proper time to heal mentally, and it would give her the space to not have to worry about a relationship, while working on getting her life back in order. If she doesn't want to confide in me, then I can't help her any more than I already have. Unique Pause 14126. Have you even looked into support groups for partners of survivors? OP replied. No, because my mind is pretty much already made up. I think it would be best for her to not have to worry about keeping up with a relationship and instead focus on her therapy and rebuilding herself. I could still be there as a friend, but taking that pressure of maintaining a relationship off her shoulders would be for the best. Update. First of all, I want to thank everybody for participating in the chat. About 80% of the comments were extremely toxic, and I figured it would be like that. The post had 50k plus views and over 400 comments, all up for debate. I also got plenty of helpful comments and messages from people giving me great advice. In summary, if you see this, my girlfriend of over 2 years was SA and refused to press charges against the man who she knew attacked her. She has not told anybody about this except me, and she was almost ready to keep it from me as well. She refuses to talk to her friends or her family and claims she is in therapy, so I needed to really press the issue. I still to this day have no assurance of that, but I obviously take her word for it. My problem is that, despite the lack of communication, our actual life has obviously been non-existent. I expect that to a degree. This assault happened almost 5 months ago. I've tried to engage her actually one time, but she didn't want to, and I get that. At the time, it was too soon, and I still to this day haven't tried anything since. I gave her the respect and the boundary to work through it, and didn't want to try it again, unless she was 100% ready, so that's what I've done. A lot of people said, oh, you're an arsehole, and you don't love her. This isn't true at all and is quite ignorant. Just because I want to hook up in some way doesn't mean I don't love or respect her. I just have never been in this situation. I didn't know how she would react, or that, after almost 5 months of therapy, she would still not want to have sex, or at least be intimate in some way. I ended up breaking up with her over the weekend, and she was obviously upset about it. But I feel like this was the best option for both of us. We aren't married. We don't live together, so it's not like we have to go through some divorce process or work on getting out of a place we live together. She can now completely focus on her recovery and mental health without having to worry about our relationship. This was on Saturday night, and we've still kept in touch since. I told her I'd still be around as a friend and would help with whatever was needed. I'm not just planning on leaving her out to dry. I already know the comments will say, "Good, she deserves better," and "Now she can find someone worth the time." Blah blah, I get it. I disagree, but I think I did a lot of things right in this situation. I, however, don't think I'm obligated to stick with a relationship I'm unhappy with and get no communication out of it. We both talked about the possibility of getting back together in the future, and I agreed to it. I can certainly see that as something that happens, and I look forward to the future. Relevant comments. TTNL 35. Bro, your biggest arsehole moment was trying to pressure her into reporting. The attacker took away her agency and ability to make decisions. You tried to carry on that pattern instead of respecting her choice. Breaking up with her, because she wasn't ready for sex again 5 months after the assault, was just the cherry on top. The reason she deserves better is because your attitude toward both of those things would be harmful and detrimental to anyone trying to recover from a sexual assault. No one deserves a partner who will make their recovery harder. You may think you did a lot of things right, but if the things you think you did right include trying to pressure her into reporting, then you are wrong. OP replied. She needed to report. That was the biggest mistake she's made, along with keeping everything built up inside herself. Not wanting to speak to anyone, including me, and not telling her parents or friends about it. Now she can let the guy who did it go and do it to someone else. When he does, I'll be sure to tag you first. Magister 1703. You're disgusting. She is going through an absolutely horrific trauma. You shouldn't be focused on what you're not getting, but on being there for her and giving her a support system. You're 100% top. I have never, ever read something so narcissistic in my life. How selfish can one person truly be? Your relationship obviously didn't mean anything to you if you could just walk away from her when she's dealing with something this horrible and you're not getting your way. It's a good thing the relationship is over because she deserves someone who is going to put her first and support her. You obviously can't provide her with that level of love, respect, or support. OP replied. I have been there to support her, and still will be. If someone else wants to step up and not be sexually active, potentially ever, and work with her in a relationship, then I would certainly wish the best for them. I doubt that happens though at this time. Once some more time passes and she heals, it will be better. Thank you for watching the video.